Perhaps you're a little bit bored now of all the talk around prismatic evolutions and how overpriced it is and how difficult it is to obtain. So let's go back to basics today. 10 under 10, 10 of my favorite cards right now, the most beautiful ones that are also very undervalued, under $10, and in my opinion are set to rise nicely in the next year or so. A very quick disclaimer before we get into it, none of these on this list, guys, are in a particular order. They're all extremely good pickups. Naturally, I've pushed the better ones, in my opinion, towards the end at 1, 2, 3, 4. They're probably slightly better pickups than 7, 8, 9, 10 because they're a little bit more beautiful in my opinion, or they're slightly more undervalued. But in general, guys, no particular order, all of them are very strong pickups. Without any further ado, let's kick things off. Now to kick things off, guys, we have the little yellow electric mouse that we all know and love, the poster boy of the IP itself. It is Pikachu. This one specifically being the Crown Zenith Galarian Gallery version. Now with Crown Zenith, it is about to finish its last wave of print. We are hearing rumors that the Sea and Sky collection at Sam's Club is about to receive another run. But after that, guys, due to the amount of time Crown Zenith has been out, how long it's been available for, I do think that that will be it after that. And therefore, now that printing will stop, I do think we'll see a nice rise in not only sealed product, but also the desirable cards from the set, such as this Pikachu, for example. Now, as we look at some of the stats, we can see a year ago, it started at around $3 and it's risen over 140% to $7.63. Now, that's a very, very cheap card, right? Only $7 is next to nothing. Most people can afford that. And most people want a Pikachu in their collection, right? But they don't have the money to get those top desirable Pikachus. Mainly some Pikachus back from when they were a kid, back in the late 90s or early 2000s. And they have to settle for a different option in the modern era. This one being a full art, a very beautiful one at that. I do think it's a strong option and one that I do think will rise nicely with time. Now coming in at number 9, we have Zorua, the illustration rare from Shrouded Fable. Now, of course, as we all know, it's no secret, Shrouded Fable really isn't the strongest set. It has a couple of okay cards in there, but in general, it will probably go down as one of the worst from the Scarlet and Violet era. But hidden in there, we do have this little beautiful creature in Zorua. As we can see, I'm a big fan of these cards, right? These high resolution shots of the foreground with the very low resolution backgrounds. It does remind me of this card from Surging Sparks, which I know when this was leaked, I also was a big fan of this. Again, as you can see, a very high res shot in the foreground, the very low res background. I think they look very, very beautiful, quite realistic looking cards, and I'm a big fan of them. So Zorua anyway, sitting currently at $7.94. As you can see from the graph from the last 6 months, with the hype being kind of invested elsewhere from people such as Surging Sparks, even Twilight Masquerade coming out around this time, now Prismatic Evolutions, Journey Together, then you've got Team Rocket coming out. No one really cares about Shrouded Fable, which is also why I've kind of put this lower down the order, because I don't think it's going to rise too much, but I think it will do eventually. I think it will have its day. Of course, Zorua actually being spoken about a little bit recently, as we do have the ETB from Journey Together, including the promo card, which will be Zorua, ends Zorua to be specific. So Zorua getting a little bit of love from the Pokemon company themselves by including that promo in the ETB. But this one in general, I think is a very good looking card, and I do think it's slightly undervalued right now. I do think it could rise nicely in the next, probably not necessarily a year, but a couple of years. I do think we're in for a strong 2025 with a lot of hype and people looking to park their money elsewhere other than decent cards from Shrouded Fable, right? It's just the way it's going to be. So I just think it's a nice card to pick up and add to your collection if you are a fan of this Pokemon. It is a little bit of a fan favorite. If you had played the games, you do know that it has quite a special ability. So, and it's a very cute looking Pokemon, right? So it is a card that a lot of people are going to like, and therefore I do think eventually it will have its day and it will rise. Moving on to number 8, we have Pinsir. Now, personally, I must say, a little disclaimer, I'm not actually a big fan of this style of artwork. It reminds me a lot of the Alolan Dog Trio from Surging Sparks. I'm not really a big fan of that kind of, I don't know, cartoony style art, but it's not really important what I think, as this list is based on what the community think, or what I feel the community will think. And I know this is quite a sought after card, quite a liked card, that not just for the artwork, but also it is Pinsir, right? It's quite a lovable Pokemon from the first generation. And first generation Pokemon will always, unless it's Mr. Mime, which is a bit of a meme, will normally do quite well, right? This being the illustration rare from Twilight Masquerade. It's a strong card, right? It's a happy looking pincer right there. It is nice artwork in general, just the art style I'm not a fan of. But I can appreciate a good card, and this one is. Currently only sitting at only $7. I do think any kind of illustration rare or full art of Gen 1 to even 3 Pokemon will perform strongly because of how much nostalgia and how much love there is there from a wider group of people. So Pinsir, I do think right now, as we can see, it has risen gradually over the last few months. We take a look at the graph here and I draw like a line of roughly how it's risen. You can see there it's rise, 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 rise. So I do think it will continue in that vein, and in 2025, throughout 2025, with the market performing as strongly as it does, I think this will rise to $10, $15, $20 card. I do think it's a very solid pickup. Coming in at number 7, we have Lycia's Appeal, the ultra rare from Surging Sparks. Now, of course, a very recent card, and this one is the cheaper version of the 2 Lycia's Appeal available from the set. Now, this right here is your expensive one, the SIR from Surging Sparks, and this one right here is your simple full art. Now, this one here is actually my favorite. I'm not saying it because it's cheaper, although of course it plays its part. If you simply want a good Lycia's trainer card, is it really that big of a difference? This one, look, yeah, okay, it's got Altari in the background, but the picture of her in general, which is the point of the card, the main point of the card, it's just not as good a picture as this one, in my opinion. I think this one you see a lot more of her, and it's just a better picture, pulling a better face than this one. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it. It's just a trainer card, right? But we're entitled to our opinions, right? And this is mine. But in general, I think there's not that much big of a difference for the difference in price. And this one's sitting at only $6.70. On release, guys, it was going for over $20 for a period of time. It dropped off massively and currently, as I said, sitting at $6. I do think this one, when people realize they can't get their hands on this one because of how expensive it is and there really isn't that big of a difference, this one should pick up in price, as it is a very sought after trainer in general. Lycia, quite a loved waifu card. Therefore, I do think this one at the minute is quite undervalued. And if you're not just after Pokemon for your collection, you also want to collect trainer cards, and good ones at that, I do think this one is a strong pickup. Now, coming in at number 6, we have a pseudo legendary from the 3rd generation. That, of course, as you can see in front of you, being Metagross, the illustration rare from Temporal Forces. Now, this one just sneaks into my 10 under 10, thankfully, as it's currently sitting at $9.55. It is starting to rise quite rapidly though, guys. I don't think it will be under $10 for long. As we can see, it sat around $4.50 upon release, quickly rising $6, $7, $8, and now $9. The market's really pushing it, 120% in the last 6 months. I do think that, yeah, as I said, it will probably double in price in the next few months. I do think this card, being as popular as Metagross is, not only in the games, but also in general, in Pokemon, it's a very beautiful card as well, right? I mean, look at a couple Metagrosses in the picture, a snowy atmosphere, snow and ice in general. That kind of atmosphere is quite a desired kind of, it generates a lot of love from not just in Pokemon, but in general. People love the kind of winter atmosphere, right? And Metagross being there helping out in the winter, in the snow, snowman in the foreground as well. It's a beautiful picture, right? I like it a lot. I do think the community do as well, and I do think this one, with a reason, will rise very nicely in the next, I'd say the next few months. It'll probably be double that price. I'm sure this time next year it'll probably be a $30 plus card. Therefore, if you do want to add this one to your collection, guys, I do recommend running and picking it up soon, as it's a very strong card. Now, over halfway through the list, guys, and we move back to Gen 1 and we move to Gloom, specifically from Obsidian Flames. This one being the illustration rare. As I said previously, you can't really go wrong with your early generations, 1, 2, or 3. That's why you do see a lot of them in this list. Gloom being actually one of my favorite grass type Pokemons from the earlier generations. I do think it's quite an interesting Pokemon. I quite like Gloom in the anime series as well. When I was a kid, it's quite a mischievous Pokemon, quite an interesting one. I do think it's quite underrated in the games as well. And this card right here, full of color, right? We also have other Pokemon in the foreground with a couple Weedles there. And in general, Pokemon cards that do feature other Pokemon in the foreground or background normally, or they tend to do well as well, right? I mean, you're getting almost 2 for your price of 1 there, right? Okay, it's only a Weedle, but the more Pokemon involved, the better it is for the card, right? It normally performs stronger. As you can see, Gloom is kind of not camouflaged completely, but it's surrounded by an atmosphere that share the same colors as the Pokemon itself. It's a very, very colorful and beautiful card. And at the minute, this one sits at, again, just under $10, $8.83, performing really strongly in the last 3 months, had a huge rise in the last month or so from December to January, up 60%. And as I said, guys, this one, just like the last one with Metagross, another one that I don't think will really be sat around under $10 for long. Obsidian Flames has been out for quite a while now. Gloom, Gen 1, desirable Pokemon, beautiful card. Probably going to be double its price, if not more, this time next year. Solid pickup, guys. I recommend Gloom. Moving swiftly on, we move on to Infernape, the illustration rare from Twilight Masquerade. Now, of course, Twilight Masquerade being quite a recent set, Infernape not having a massive amount of time to really settle into the market and perform. Currently sitting at only $9, right? Now, as we can see from the graph, it's quite volatile. It's been down, it's been up, it's been down, and it's now settling in at around $9. Was over $10 at one point, but I do think with Infernape, normally starter Pokemon tend to perform really well. Unfortunately, Infernape has the sad story of that it shares a set with another starter Pokemon, a very desirable one that has stole the show with that set. Of course, I'm talking about Greninja. Everyone knows just how strong Greninja is and how well it's performed, how expensive that card is. And it has stole a bit of the limelight from Infernape, as this is a very beautiful card, right? Look at that color, look at that, those red and yellows and oranges in there. I think that's a very, very strong card. I remember when this was first leaked, people were looking at it thinking, that's a strong card, that's a very good card, that must be one of the chase cards. Of course, its price at the moment would say not, but as I said, with it being a starter, with it being also a lovable starter in Infernape, a beautiful card as well, give it time, it's a recent set, give it a year or so, and I think this one has the potential to rise a lot. Infernape being another strong pickup. Now moving on, we also stick around in Gen 1 and we move to Arbok from Temporal Forces, another illustration rare. As you can see, guys, a lot of these, the trend being illustration rare cards. They're solid cards, right? You get a full art and they normally have a lot of detail and they normally sit around very affordable prices. Again, this Arbok sitting at only around $9. Now, if we look at the graph, if we draw another line, a line of best fit, just to throw a little mathematical term in there for you guys, just to kind of get the average kind of increase of the price. There it is. It's a very gradual increase, but it's constantly rising, right? As we're seeing from other graphs, the last one, for example, being Infernape, being very volatile, this one being quite a steady riser. It's had more time to settle into the market and perform, as it's from Temporal Forces. But I do think Arbok being quite a strong Pokemon, as it was quite prevalent in the anime, obviously being one of Team Rocket's main Pokemon. It's quite an interesting art as well, right? I mean, you have Arbok upside down there. I do like the colors. I'm a big fan of purple's my favorite color, actually, to tell you guys. I'm a big fan of green as well, and those two colors go well together. I do think Arbok's a strong Pokemon. I think this is a strong card. I do think it's worth more than only $9. I think the graph, if it continues to trend in that way, I do think this will reach a price that this card deserves in the future. I think in the next year or so, this has easily has the potential to be $20, $25+. Again, another one to pick up for your collection before it gets a little bit more expensive. Now, moving on to the penultimate card on the list, we have my favorite grass type Pokemon from the first generation, or is it Bulbasaur? Now that's a tough one. I completely forgot about Bulbasaur there, guys. Okay, apart from the starters, Tangela is my favorite grass type Pokemon from the first generation. Now, I was extremely happy when the Pokemon Company decided to show some love to Tangela and give its very own illustration rare card in the 151 set in 2023. And it's a beautiful card at that as well, right? Look at them both there. Pair of Tangelas, happy, using their vines as a swing on the tree. Beautiful looking playful card there. I like it a lot. I like the art style as well. As we can see, it currently sits at only $8.75. Now for 151, which do have, as I said, it does have quite a lot of quite expensive cards already, right? As it's no secret that the cards in the 151 set have risen in price a lot, whereas Tangela seems to kind of floating up and down. It's quite a volatile price. Last month or so starting to trend upwards, as I would expect, as just like Crown Zenith, it is going to probably stop being printed very soon. 151, of course, now being almost 2 years old. It came out in the latter part of 2023, so soon this will be 2 years old. And when they stop printing, prices of both sealed products and singles themselves will rise in price nicely. And I expect Tangela, being a Gen 1 Pokemon, as I said, very popular Pokemon itself as well, a beautiful card, being from a very popular set in 151 as well, very nostalgic. I do think this card has the potential to easily reach $20 plus, maybe even more, 25, 30. Beautiful card. Pick it up for your collection while you can at a good price. Now, the final card we will look at today, guys, is Mesprit from Surging Sparks. Now, as some of you may know, as some of you might not, Mesprit is a legendary Pokemon. It's part of the Lake Trio, along with Uxie and Azelf. Of course, only Mesprit does feature in this set. The other two do not, for whatever reason. But Mesprit, kind of the modern Mew is what I would call it. It gives off that kind of vibe, that kind of cute, pinky coloured psychic type Pokemon that can fly around, just like Mew can. It's a very beautiful Pokemon, right? As we know, legendary Pokemon are very desirable. If you've played the games, you know that only one exists. You know that they're very hard to get. You know that they're very powerful Pokemon as well, very strong. Therefore, they have a level of desirability with the fans, Mesprit being no exception. Now, this card currently sits at only $9.89. I'm very surprised at that, right? I mean, I'm very grateful as it just sneaks into the video, thankfully, for being under $10. It did actually reach over $10, as you can see, about a month ago, sort of middle of the end of December. It was around $6. Shot up rapidly to over 10. It has just tailed off a little bit. Very kind of it to do that just for the sake of this video. But yeah, Mesprit, guys, I do think quite easily capable of reaching that $30, $35, $40 mark, as it's a strong card, strong Pokemon. Surging Spark's been a very strong set. Give it time. So obviously it's very new, it's very volatile, but give it time. And I do think this card will rise very well. Now there we have it, guys. We've looked at 10 very strong cards, very beautiful cards, but also what I think are very undervalued. Not necessarily the 10 most undervalued cards out there, just 10 that I've found and that I think myself are ones that I would recommend picking up. All very strong in their own right, all very beautiful in their own right, and all have the potential to rise in the next year or so and will be great additions to your collection. What I want to know, guys, in the comments, please let me know if you were to put these all in a list, all 10 cards, based on how sort of, I don't know, desirable they are. You make up your own parameters for your list, but you can judge them based on how beautiful you think they are or their potential to rise in value. Whatever you want, set your own parameters, but let me know in the comments how you would list them 10 to 1 and why. Anyway, that's been everything from me today, guys. It was a pleasure and I thoroughly enjoyed to go back to basics, have a look at the Pokemon cards that we all know and love, and just forget a little bit about the hype around prismatic evolutions, as that does seem to be the main talking point at the minute. And I wanted to kind of go back and just enjoy Pokemon for why we all love it, for the beauty of the cards that we have available to us. If you have made it this far, I massively appreciate your support. I have actually reached 50 subscribers somehow. So guys, thank you so much for all of your support. It is massively appreciated. It's very overwhelming, but very, very nice to see just how much a lot of you are enjoying my content. So guys, please, as always, if you have enjoyed it, don't hesitate to leave a like. If you are new, you can subscribe right here. Guys, if you want to watch a couple of videos on me predict the prices of single cards this time next year, that's right here, or perhaps sealed products this time next year, you can do so right here. Guys, I've been Pokecharla. I'll catch you in the next one.